Chef Amara stood in her cozy kitchen, surrounded by the familiar scents of garlic and rosemary. She was known in her community for her exceptional cooking skills, often blending traditional recipes with modern twists. Her passion for food was evident in every dish she created, and those who tasted her cooking often left with smiles and satisfied hearts. One sunny afternoon, as she prepared a special dish for a local event, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email that would change everything. The message was from an event planner for a prestigious banquet, one that would host some of the wealthiest people in the world. They wanted Amara to cater the event, showcasing her culinary talents to an elite audience. As she read the email, excitement bubbled inside her. This was a dream come true for any chef, and especially for someone like Amara, who had worked hard to make a name for herself in a challenging industry. However, she couldn't help but feel a wave of anxiety wash over her. Catering for billionaires meant high expectations and scrutiny. After a moment of hesitation, Amara picked up her phone and called her mother. Her mother had always been her biggest supporter, encouraging her to pursue her dreams even when the road was tough. As the phone rang, Amara thought about the stories her mother had shared with her about facing challenges as a black woman in the culinary world. When her mother answered, Amara could hear the warmth in her voice. "Mom, you won't believe it? I've been invited to cater a banquet for billionaires," Amara exclaimed, her voice tinged with excitement. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful." "You deserve this opportunity," her mother replied, pride evident in her tone. "Just remember, to stay true to yourself. You've worked so hard to get here." Amara smiled, feeling a sense of comfort wash over her. She knew her mother was right. No matter how prestigious the event, she had to remain authentic to her cooking style and values. As they talked, Amara began to think about the dishes she would prepare. She envisioned vibrant plates filled with flavors that told her story, dishes that celebrated her heritage and the joy of cooking. Over the next few days, Amara immersed herself in preparation. She experimented with recipes, carefully selecting ingredients that reflected her culture. She wanted every bite to be a celebration of her identity and a reflection of her journey as a chef. As she worked, she thought about the guests who would sit at the banquet tables, eating her food. Would they appreciate the love and effort she put into each dish? Would they understand the stories behind her recipes? As the date of the banquet approached, Amara felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She could already picture the grand venue, adorned with elegant decorations and bustling with guests in designer suits and glamorous dresses. But alongside her anticipation was a nagging worry about how she would be received. Would they see her as just the chef, or would they recognize her talent and passion? The night before the banquet, Amara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about the challenges she might face. Despite her fears, she reminded herself of her mother's words, "Stay true to yourself." Determined to make a statement, Amara resolved to not only showcase her culinary skills, but also to honor her heritage. She would let her food speak for her, hoping it would leave a lasting impression on everyone who tasted it. With a deep breath, Amara closed her eyes, ready to embrace the opportunity that awaited her. The next day would be the start of something extraordinary. The day of the banquet arrived, and Chef Amara awoke early, her heart racing with anticipation. The sun peeked through her kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the pots and pans that had become her second home. Today was not just another day. It was the moment she had been preparing for. As she gathered her tools and ingredients, she could feel the energy in the air, buzzing with possibility. Amara drove to the grand venue, a luxurious hotel that sparkled with elegance. The building was tall and imposing, with golden accents and large ornate doors that seemed to welcome only the elite. As she entered, the scent of fresh flowers filled the lobby. She marveled at the crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Staff in crisp uniforms moved efficiently, setting up tables adorned with fine china and sparkling silverware. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the chatter of guests arriving for the evening's festivities. In the kitchen, Mara's team was already hard at work. They moved in perfect harmony, chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, and plating dishes that Amara had carefully crafted.
House.
Each member of her team was excited, knowing they were part of something special. Amara felt a sense of pride as she watched them. Their dedication matched her own, and together, they aimed to create a dining experience that would leave everyone in awe. As the hours passed, Amara put the finishing touches on her signature dish, a vibrant jambalaya that blended flavors from her childhood with modern culinary techniques. The dish was a colorful mix of shrimp, chicken, and spicy sausage, all resting on a bed of perfectly cooked rice. It was not just food, it was a piece of her identity, a celebration of her roots. She carefully arranged the ingredients, ensuring that every plate would tell a story. However, as the team prepared, Amara overheard snippets of conversation from the waiting staff. Some guests were already expressing their opinions about the food before even tasting it. Amara's heart sank when she heard a few comments that hinted at snobbery and entitlement. She knew that some guests viewed her merely as a hired hand, not recognizing the artistry and heart that went into her culinary creations. Despite her growing unease, Amara focused on the task at hand. She reminded herself that she was there to showcase her talent and that her food deserved respect. As the guests began to arrive, she took a moment to gather her thoughts. She breathed deeply, grounding herself in the knowledge that she had worked hard to be there. The banquet hall was now filled with elegantly dressed guests, their laughter and chatter echoing off the walls. Amara watched as they mingled, sipping expensive wines and enjoying the luxurious atmosphere. The sight of them in their designer dresses and tailored suits made her feel out of place, but she quickly shook off the feeling. She was a chef, a creator, and she belonged in that kitchen. As the time for the first course approached, Amara felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She took one last look at her dishes, ensuring everything was perfect. Just as she was about to step out to greet the guests, she overheard a group of men at a nearby table making jokes that were not just unkind, but racist. The laughter that followed sent a chill down her spine. Amara's heart raced as she realized the evening might not unfold as she had hoped. She felt a conflict brewing within her, torn between her desire to serve and the need to stand up against disrespect. With her determination ignited, Amara knew she had a choice to make. Would she let their words slide, or would she find the courage to confront the situation head-on? As the first course was about to be served, she took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. As the first course was announced, Amara felt a surge of adrenaline rush through her. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of her purpose and the passion she poured into each dish. The waitstaff moved quickly to serve the guests, and soon, Amara stood at the entrance of the kitchen, ready to greet the first diners. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, but her heart felt heavy with the weight of the earlier comments she had overheard. The first table was filled with well-dressed guests, their laughter ringing out like music. They were animated, sharing stories and toasting to their successes. As Amara approached with the first course, a beautifully plated shrimp cocktail, her eyes caught the attention of a group of men seated at the far end of the table. They were clearly enjoying themselves, but as she served them, she sensed an undercurrent of disrespect. One of the men leaned back in his chair, a smirk on his face. "Well, I hope this isn't too spicy for the delicate palate," he quipped. Loud enough for everyone to hear, the table erupted in laughter, the joke cutting into Amara like a knife. She felt her cheeks flush with anger and humiliation. How could they treat her like this? She was not just a chef, she was an artist, pouring her heart into her work. Amara paused, her hands trembling slightly as she placed the dish in front of him. She could feel the eyes of the other guests on her, and in that moment, something inside her shifted. She realized she had a choice, to walk away and let it go, or to stand up for herself and her work. Gathering her courage, she took a step forward, her voice steady but firm. "Excuse me," she said, making sure to address the entire table. "I'm proud of the food I've prepared, and I put a lot of love into this dish. I would appreciate it if you could keep the conversation respectful." The laughter faded, replaced by a stunned silence. The man who had made the comment blinked in surprise, his expression changing from amusement to confusion. "Whoa, who do you think you are?" He shot back, his tone defensive. "I'm Chef Amara," she replied, her voice unwavering. "I'm the one who created this meal. I believe everyone deserves respect regardless of their background or profession." The tension in the room was palpable. Some guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others leaned in, intrigued. By the confrontation, Mara felt a rush of adrenaline, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this was a risky move. She couldn't let the disrespect continue. One of the women at the table, dressed in a stunning red gown, spoke up. "I think it's wonderful that you're standing up for yourself. Food is an art, and it should be appreciated." Her voice was calm and supportive, cutting through the tension like a warm light. The man who had mocked Amara shifted in his seat, clearly unsure of how to respond. The atmosphere had changed, and the other guests began to murmur in agreement with the woman. The laughter that had once filled the room was replaced by an air of reflection as people began to consider the impact of their words. Amara felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had taken a stand, and in doing so, she found strength she didn't know she had. She turned to the rest of the guests, her voice softer now but still filled with conviction. "I hope you all enjoy your meal. Thank you for giving my food the respect it deserves." With that, she stepped back, her heart still racing, but a sense of pride swelling within her. She had faced the moment head-on, and she knew she had made an impression not just on the guests at the table, but on herself as well. As she returned to the kitchen, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, ready to continue the evening with her head held high. As Amara retreated to the safety of the kitchen, her heart continued to race. She had faced the hostile comments head-on, and although she felt a mix of relief and anxiety, she also knew she had sparked a significant moment. The kitchen buzzed with energy as her team prepared the next course, but Amara could feel the tension lingering from her confrontation. The initial thrill of serving the guests had been overshadowed by uncertainty about how the rest of the evening would unfold. In the kitchen, her sous chef Malik approached her, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. "That was bold. Chef, I didn't expect you to call them out like that," he said, wiping his hands on his apron. "But what if they don't take it well? We need to keep things running smoothly." "I know, Malik," Amara replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I couldn't just stand by and let them disrespect me or my food. It's more than just a meal. It's a part of who I am." She looked around at her team, who were all nodding in agreement. "We deserve to be treated with respect, and I won't apologize for standing up for that." As the next course in, elegant duck confit was being plated, Amara felt a wave of doubt wash over her. Would the guests support her, or would they turn against her? She wanted to believe that people could change, that they could learn to appreciate the effort and passion behind the dishes she had created. But the earlier laughter echoed in her mind, reminding her of the barriers she faced. Meanwhile, in the banquet hall, the guests were buzzing with conversation. The atmosphere had shifted dramatically since Amara's confrontation. Some guests were now discussing the courage it took for a chef to stand up for herself, while others were whispering about the incident. The man who had made the joke sat, unusually quiet, seemingly reflecting on the words he had spoken. The woman in the red gown, who had supported Amara, took a moment to address the table. "I think it's important that we consider how our words affect others. We're here to enjoy amazing food, and we should appreciate the hard work that goes into it." Her voice was calm, but her message was powerful. As the next course was served, Amara watched from the kitchen, her heart pounding. She couldn't see the guests' faces clearly, but she could sense a shift in the energy of the room. The laughter was back, but it was different, more genuine, more respectful. It seemed that Amara's courage had sparked a conversation about respect and appreciation. With each plate that left the kitchen, Amara felt a new sense of hope. The duck confit was met with murmurs of delight, and as she listened to the guests praising the food, she felt a small smile creep onto her face. She had poured her heart into every dish, and it was finally being recognized. As the evening progressed, Amara's team continued to work diligently, and the mood in the kitchen became more relaxed. They shared smiles and laughter, fueled by the excitement of the banquet's success. Amara felt a sense of camaraderie with her team, strengthened by their shared values and mutual respect. But as the final course approached, Mara knew she needed to prepare for the possibility of more confrontation. She had already made a statement, but would the guests continue to support her, or would they return to their old ways? With her heart still racing, she decided to take one more step. She would address the guests directly again, hoping to reinforce the importance of respect and understanding in the culinary world, as the last plates were prepared. Amara took a deep breath, ready to step back into the banquet hall. She wanted to ensure that her voice was heard not just as a chef, but as a symbol of dignity and resilience. Little did she know that her next words would have an even bigger impact than the first. As Amara stepped back into the banquet hall, she felt a mix of nerves and determination. The final course was a beautiful dessert, a rich chocolate torte topped with fresh berries and a drizzle of caramel. She knew that this dish could leave a lasting impression, but it was not just about the food. It was also about the message she wanted to convey. She had already taken a stand, and now she needed to reinforce her commitment to respect and dignity in the culinary world. The atmosphere in the room had changed since her earlier confrontation. Guests were engaged in lively discussions, and there was an air of excitement as they anticipated the final dish. Amara noticed that some guests had shifted their seats, moving closer to the woman in the red gown who had defended her. The divide was becoming clear. There were those who supported her, those who were still hesitant to change their attitudes, as the waitstaff began serving the dessert. Amara took a moment to observe the guests. The man who had made the racist joke earlier sat quietly, watching the room with a contemplative expression. Amara wondered if he was beginning to understand the impact of his words. She felt a flicker of hope that perhaps he might change, but she knew that change takes time and effort. Once the dessert was served, Mara gathered her courage and approached the center of the room. The buzz of conversation quieted as guests turned their attention to her. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their gazes upon her. "Thank you all for joining us tonight and for enjoying the dishes we have prepared," she began, her voice steady. "I want to take a moment to talk about something important." The room fell silent, and Amara could feel the tension in the air. Food is not just about taste. It is about culture, tradition, and respect. When we come together to share a meal, we are also sharing our stories and our backgrounds. It is essential to appreciate the effort and passion that goes into every dish. Some guests nodded in agreement, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Amara pressed on, her heart racing but her resolve strong. "I want to thank those of you who have supported me tonight. Your kindness and respect mean the world to me and my team, but I also urge everyone to reflect on the words we use and the jokes we make. Humor should never come at the expense of someone else's dignity." The woman in the red gown stood and applauded, her actions prompting others to join in. Amara felt a wave of warmth wash over her, but she could still sense a divide in the room. Some guests clapped enthusiastically while others remained silent, their expressions unreadable. Amara took a moment to scan the faces in the crowd. She could see a mix of emotions. Some were thoughtful, while others looked defensive. The man who had mocked her earlier sat stiffly, his eyes fixed on the table. Amara knew that change would not happen overnight, but she hoped this moment would encourage reflection. Together, we can create an environment where everyone feels valued and respected, she continued, her voice growing stronger. "Let's celebrate our differences and learn from one another. Food has the power to unite us, and I believe that we can build a better future together." As she finished speaking, Amara felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had shared her heart, and now it was up to the guests to decide how they would respond. The applause grew louder, and a few guests even stood to cheer. Amara's team watched from the kitchen, their faces beaming with pride. But as the applause faded, the man who had made the joke earlier finally spoke up. "I didn't mean to offend anyone," he said, his voice hesitant. "I guess I didn't think before I spoke." Mara's heart raced as she realized that this could be a turning point. Change was beginning, and it was a step in the right direction. The divide that had formed earlier was slowly starting to bridge, and Amara felt a renewed sense of hope for the evening and for the future. As the applause from Amara's speech faded, the atmosphere in the banquet hall shifted once again. Guests began to discuss her words, some expressing their support, while others remained skeptical. The earlier division in the room was still palpable, and Amara could sense that the evening was hanging by a thread. She felt a mixture of hope and anxiety, wondering how the rest of the night would unfold. Once the dessert was served, guests began to dig in, and the rich chocolate torte quickly became the highlight of the evening. Amara watched from the kitchen, her heart swelling with pride as she saw guests savoring each bite. The flavors danced on their tongues, and for a moment it seemed as though the tension of the evening might dissipate. But as the guests continued to eat and discuss, Amara noticed some conversations growing heated at one table. A group of men who had been silent during her speech began to voice their opinions loudly. "Why should we change the way we joke around?" one of them argued. "It's just humor. If they can't take it, that's their problem." The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Amara felt her stomach twist. She could see the woman in the red gown, who had supported her earlier, frowning at the men's comments. "It's not about not being able to take a joke," she said firmly. "It's about understanding that words have consequences. We can be funny without being hurtful." But the men continued to dismiss her points, laughing and joking among themselves. Amara could feel the tension rising again, and she knew she couldn't stay silent. She took a deep breath and stepped back into the room, ready to intervene once more. "Excuse me," Amara said, her voice steady but firm. "I think it's important to remember that humor should never come at the cost of someone else's dignity. It's not just about what we find funny, it's about how our words affect others." The men looked at her, clearly irritated by her. "Interruption. You're too sensitive," one of them shot back. "It's just a joke." Amara's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "It's not about being sensitive. It's about respect. If we want to create a space where everyone feels welcome, we need to think about the impact of our words." But the room's mood had shifted drastically. Guests began to murmur among themselves, and soon the atmosphere became charged with conflict. People who had once been supportive of Amara's message now found themselves caught in the crossfire. The laughter faded, replaced by tense expressions and worried glances. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the hall as one of the waiters accidentally dropped a tray of glasses. The sound startled everyone, and the room fell silent. As the waiter scrambled to pick up the broken pieces, Amara felt a sense of dread wash over her. It was as if the banquet was unraveling before her eyes, and she feared that all her efforts to promote understanding were slipping away. The tension in the room escalated, with guests arguing quietly at their tables. Some wanted to support Amara, while others felt defensive and unwilling to change. The divide was deeper than she had anticipated. It seemed that the evening was heading toward chaos. Realizing that the situation was spiraling out of control, Amara felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. She had hoped that her stand would lead to positive change, but now it seemed that the banquet was collapsing around her. The atmosphere of celebration had turned into one of conflict, and she feared that all her hard work and passion had been in vain. Just when it seemed that the evening could not get worse, the head event planner rushed into the room, looking flustered. "I'm so sorry, everyone," she announced, her voice shaky. "Due to the tension tonight, we have decided to end the event early. Thank you all for coming." Mara felt her heart sink. The banquet she had dreamed of sharing with her culinary creations was ending in disappointment. As she looked around the room, she realized that perhaps this moment was not the end, but a beginning, a chance for real conversations about respect and understanding. She knew she had to keep fighting for her voice and the voices of others, even if the banquet had collapsed. As the guests began to gather their belongings and exit the banquet hall, a heavy silence settled over the room. Amara felt a mix of disappointment and determination as she watched the evening unravel in front of her. The event planner's announcement had signaled an abrupt end to what had started as a celebration of culinary art, but even in the chaos, Mara sensed a flicker of hope. Once the guests left, Amara and her team began to clean up the kitchen. The clattering of pots and pans filled the air, but the energy was different now. Her team exchanged glances, some with expressions of frustration and others with understanding. They had poured their hearts into the evening, and although it had not gone as planned, they knew they had done their best. Malik approached Amara, wiping sweat from his brow. "I'm sorry it ended like this, chef. You really stood up for what you believe in," he said, his voice sincere. "That took a lot of courage." "Thank you, Malik," Amara replied, feeling grateful for her team's support. "I just wish it could have gone differently. I wanted to show them how food can unite us, not divide us." As they continued to clean, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that the evening had been a turning point, even if it had not ended in the way she had hoped. She had sparked conversations about respect and dignity, and she knew that those discussions could carry on beyond this one event. Perhaps in time, people would begin to understand the importance of kindness and empathy. In the days that followed, Amara received a flood of messages from guests who had attended the banquet. Many reached out to express their support and gratitude for her stand against disrespect. They shared how her words had inspired them to reflect on their own behavior and attitudes. Some even offered to collaborate with her on future events. Wanting to promote diversity and inclusion in the culinary world, Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose as she read through the messages. Although the banquet had collapsed, it had also opened doors to new opportunities. She realized that her voice was powerful, and she could use it to advocate for change in the industry. Inspired by the support she received, Amara decided to host a community event. Focused on celebrating diversity in food and culture, she envisioned a gathering that would bring together chefs from different backgrounds, sharing their culinary traditions and stories. Amara began to reach out to other chefs, inviting them to join her in creating a platform for underrepresented voices in the culinary world. The idea was not just to showcase food, but to foster understanding and appreciation among different cultures. As she planned the event, Amara felt a sense of excitement bubbling within her. She was determined to turn the disappointment of the banquet into something meaningful. It was an opportunity to create a positive space where people could come together, learn from one another, and enjoy the beauty of diversity through food. The day of the community event, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and joy. People from all walks of life gathered to celebrate, share stories, and enjoy delicious dishes from various cultures. Amara watched as guests connected over their shared love for food, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment in that moment. Amara knew that her stand had not only changed her life, but also had the potential to impact others in significant ways. The banquet may have collapsed, but from its ashes, a new beginning had emerged, a chance to bring people together, foster respect, and celebrate the beauty of diversity through the art of cooking. The journey was far from over, but Amara was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that her voice and her passion could make a difference.